So you're thinking about buying your first investment property. You may be wondering, what do I look for? How much money do I need down? How do I know if this is a good deal? And probably about a million other questions. Well, these are the things we're going to be talking about in today's video, and we're getting after it right now. If this is your first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is about the real estate market in Richmond, Virginia, and the surrounding counties of Hanover, Henrico, Chesterfield, New Kent, Goochland, and Powhatan, then subscribe below, tap the notifications bell so you can be the first to learn about the current market in Richmond, Virginia. My name is Scott Durnley with Joyner Fine Properties. My team and I get calls and emails from folks like you every single day looking for help making the move to the Richmond, Virginia area, and we absolutely love it. So whether you're moving in 9 days, 90 days, heck, even 9 months, give us a call, shoot us a text, send us an email. All that information is right below, and we'll help you make a smooth move to Richmond, Virginia. All right, so in today's video, I'm going to go over 12 steps to buying your first investment property. Whether that's one you keep for a rental or flip for a profit, I'm probably gonna be talking a little bit more for keeping it as a rental on that side, but you know, these steps work for either scenario. But the first step, and actually this is probably step 0, this is even before step 1, it's going to be, you're gonna have to get a down payment together. One thing that makes an investment property a little bit different than buying your personal residence is the lender is gonna require you to have some skin in the game. Usually that's to the tune of 20 to 25% for a down payment. Now, you know, on a normal, owner-occupied home, there's programs out there where you can get away with 0% if it's VA or VHDA. There's FHA at 3.5%, and there's conventional products at as low as 5%. But not on an investment property. You're going to have a little bit larger down payment in the 20 to 25% range. So really you got to sort of start figuring out where that's coming from. Now there are what's called hard money lenders. These are not a traditional bank. These are private lenders. Think of it as a little bit like your local loan shark. There are hard money lenders out there. It can be an option if that is your only way, and I do know some, but they tend to have a lot of fees up front, higher interest rates, and usually those balloon in 2 years. So you really have to have a sort of an exit plan from them in 2 years. So that's kind of step 0, is getting that money together for the down payment. So if we're getting into step 1, that would be build your credit. Make sure you have a decent credit score. I do recommend going to a website called creditkarma.com to check your credit. It's free to sign up, and it takes literally like 5 minutes to go through this. So if you find that you have credit issues, this will give you some time to get them squared away and take care of them. Really, minimally, you're looking for a credit score of 700 to buy a rental property. Optimally, if you had 740 or above, that would be a more perfect scenario. So that's number 1, work on your credit. So number 2, go ahead and get your tax returns together for the last 2 years. That is something your lender is going to ask for, so go ahead and get that squared away. This is especially important if you're self-employed. Lenders are going to typically look at an average of your last 2 years' income and based on your tax returns, and assume that will be your income for their numbers that they're generating for your qualification. So if you made $50,000 in 2021 and you made $100,000 in 2022, in 2023 they're going to assume you made the average of that, $75,000, when they're running their numbers. It also helps to have a couple months of bank statements together, proof of your income, proof of your assets. Just having that documentation together, is a good thing to do on step number 2. So step number 3, once you actually have this documentation together, is talk to a lender. I know several great lenders that lend on investment properties, and I can put you in touch with them. There's lots of great ones around here. And doing this step will really let you know the correct price range where you should be shopping in. So you'll be ready to go. You'll have your pre-qual letter in hand. So we're shopping in the right price range. And then that way, when you find the perfect property, you'll be ready to, pounce on it and make an offer. So that's step number 3, is talk to your lender. All right, so we're on to step number 4. This sounds pretty elementary, but once you're all pre-qualified with your lender, it's time to go visit some properties. We're gonna go see some properties. So you wanna look at literally all of the properties you can in your price range, and then maybe take your range and go about 15% over it, just to see what else, what's out there slightly over your range, and knowing that, there is gonna be some negotiation these days, perhaps, in the pricing. So I wouldn't look at houses that are too expensive. I wouldn't look at ones that are too cheap. I'd go kind of right in the mid-range. And these homes tend to have the most possibility for upside potential. And again, I like looking at single family homes versus condos and townhomes. Sometimes condos and townhomes can have a pretty high HOA fee, and these HOA fees can take a big bite out of your monthly cash flow. So I do recommend sticking in single family homes. So number 5, once you've determined a property that you're interested in, you need to determine the cash flow on that target property. Now I'm going to walk you through how to do this. There's several steps in determining cash flow, and this is very, very, very important. So probably about 90% plus of the homes you look at will not cash flow and are not going to be good investments. So it can take a little bit of time to find the right property. So you have to be patient. There is an old saying though, that everything is a good investment if you purchase it at the right price. So it is very important that you understand your numbers and what you're looking for. So first, once you've identified that property, find out what rents would be for that property. So what you're going to do is go out, there's great online resources, and I recommend Zillow for this. Zillow, you can put in the property address and you can see what similar homes around that property are renting for. So this will give you a good feel of your monthly rent. So now, to understand your true cash flow, you need to understand the ownership costs of your home. What will your mortgage be? What are your interest rate? What are your loan terms? So you need to get a good mortgage calculator to do this. And I do recommend a website. It's called mortgagecalculator.org. And it's very simple. And I'm going to pull up an example here shortly and show you how a mortgage calculator works on a $400,000 purchase example. So let's use $400,000 as our purchase price. And let's assume we've put 20% down, which is $80,000, and we've got a 7% interest rate over 30 years. So looking at the mortgage calculator, your monthly principal and interest portion of your mortgage payment will be right at $2,130. That's your principal and interest. So next you need to figure out what property taxes will be on the property that you identify. Now this can be fairly easy to find online at different county and city resources and websites, but let's assume for this example it's $350 per month. So your homeowners or hazard insurance is going to be your next component. This is typically around $100 to $150 for most of the homes that I look at and purchase as an investment property, but for this example let's plug in $120,000, kind of right in the middle of that. Then the last thing I recommend you do when you're doing your analysis is build in a reserve or a buffer amount every month that you put away. This would be like, say, for potential repairs on the property. So I like to use $200 a month as my typical reserve amount for any given property. So adding up these 4 numbers gets us to a total monthly cost of $2,800. That's our P&I of $2,130, principal and interest. That's our taxes of $350. That's our insurance of $120 and our reserve amount of $200. That gets us to $2,800. Now let's assume that through Zillow, you determined that you could rent the home for $3,600. That is a total monthly cash flow of $800. So here's the way you have to look at it. You've put down an $80,000 down payment on your investment. Now this works out to right at a 12% cash on cash return. Now in addition to that $800 a month, you're also paying down loan principal every time you make a monthly payment. So if you look at the amortization table through the mortgage calculator, you'll see that after year number 1, you will have paid down your principal by $3,250, which brings your total equity, your total first year return, to $12,850. And that's your $800 a month times 12 months cash flow. That's $9,600 plus the $3,250 of equity pay down. So your total return that first year is $12,850. And that works out to a total return of 16% on your down payment of $80,000. Now I can tell you this, never, ever, ever buy a home that does not at least break even. That is the minimal requirement to buy, is break even, but we would like to see it cash flow for sure. Now, finding a home that cash flows can take a little bit of time. You may have to see a bunch of homes in order to get to the right one where the numbers work. So get familiar with this research and how to do your math so you can make sense of what is a good investment or not a good investment. And then remember, every home will cash flow if you buy it at the correct price. So don't be afraid to make some lower offers so your numbers work. Just don't get emotional with it. It's all based on the numbers. All right, so number 6 is try to look for properties that need minor cosmetic repairs. This usually will come in the form of a slightly older home. Look for ones where all the unsexy stuff has been done. They've replaced the roof, they've replaced the windows, they've done the HVAC systems, but it just looks cosmetically dated. When you go in, it could use some new flooring, it could use some new paint, maybe a few new light fixtures and a general freshening up. Those are the ones that typically have great value. Now, don't let dated kitchens and baths scare you too much. These can be pretty easy to fix in a relatively short amount of time and usually for not a ton of money. I see a lot of properties where if you spend $30,000 on renovations, you can increase your monthly rent by up to $600 per month. And that is a really, really, really good return on investment. So the more homes you see, the more you'll know and get a feel for what renovations a home needs and what makes sense. Now, you will need some contractors to do this work if you're not planning on doing it yourself, and I have some great resources that I can provide you in the contractor area. Or there's, also you can find contractors online, Angie's List, at Yelp, and various places. But remember, when you're doing your numbers on your renovations, all renovations tend to take 20% longer than you think they will, and they can tend to cost about 20% more than your original budget. So just factor that in. Also, when you're doing your renovations, I highly recommend you make them as renter-proof as humanly possible. For example, if you're ripping up old nasty carpet, do not replace it with new carpet. Go back with a product called luxury vinyl plank. This clicks in like hardwood, looks like hardwood, but is very durable and will last you way, way longer than new carpet would for tenants. Tenants can be so very hard on carpet. So I recommend decarpeting if you need to during the renovation process. Now, obviously, if you buy the house and it has brand new carpet or pretty good carpet, don't replace it right away, but that first time it needs to go, replace it with something else. Also, I don't recommend doing things that are too expensive, like say you need to have new appliances or new light fixtures. Just go middle of the road on this. Do not put in terribly expensive stuff, because I promise you, renters can find a way to break just about anything. So now you've found the right home, the numbers work, you've got your plan for any cosmetic repairs. Step number 7 is going to be to make offers. Now, don't expect every offer that you make to be accepted. Remember, buying these homes at the correct price is absolutely crucial, so you may have to make some offers below the list price. The numbers are key here, and the numbers have to work for you. This is where you don't get emotional, you don't get personal. This is where it's important for you to work with a competent realtor, hopefully myself. And I just, because I just happen to know a decent one, and your realtor can help you through this process of making the correct offer and running these numbers for you. So now you have a house under contract. Our next step number 8, is to get your inspections done. This is critical to have a thorough home inspection. I know several good inspectors that I can refer you to that know what they're doing. So inspectors will find the defects in the home and they'll give you a cost to cure these defects. This opens up a whole nother round of negotiations with the seller, and you are always going to ask a seller for a credit for the defects no matter what. Even if the listing says this house is being sold as is, you are always going to ask for a credit, because most of the time, not always, but most of the time, that seller will give you a credit because they want to get the deal done, even if they say it's an as-is property. And remember, in this situation, the worst they can say is no. All right, so we're making our way through the list here. We're on to number 9. Number 9 is going to be understand your closing costs. When you close on a property, you're going to have expenses like your closing attorney. If you have a mortgage, which you most likely will, you'll need title insurance. There's going to be state and local taxes. There's going to be loan fees from the lender. Now, your lender will be able to give you a pretty darn good estimate of these in what's called a good faith estimate, but they can tend to run about 2% of the purchase price. So, factor that in when you're doing your math on the properties. So number 10 is once you've closed on a property, get going on those renovations. Now, you'll want to start these renovations as soon as you close. Oftentimes, if I close on a property, I have a dumpster delivered to the property on the closing day, because I know usually I'm going to be doing demolition either later on closing day or the day after. So you want to have as little downtime as humanly possible. Remember here, time is money. And the key here is to manage the contractors that you have working on the house. You have to supervise them. So I plan on being at the property. First of all, I'm pretty hands-on, and like a lot of the demo I do myself, but if that's not your cup of tea, there's certainly plenty of folks to handle on that. But you need to plan on being at the project every day for at least an hour of power. Even if you just go for your hour of power in the morning, then head off to your normal job, try to get there at least once a day, and supervision is absolutely key here. So now you have your home renovated, ready to rock and roll. So step number 11 is going to be actually rent out your property. This is key. Have professional photographs taken. I cannot stress that enough. And as you might expect by now, I know many great professional photographers that I could put you in touch with. But professional photography is worth its weight in gold, and it will help you rent your house much faster. So you're going to want to advertise your property. Once you have these awesome photographs, you're going to want to advertise online at websites like Craigslist, Apartments.com, Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, Rentals.com. There's a host of great websites. Now, it's also key to respond immediately when you get a request for information or a request for a showing. The next day is usually too late. People just move on so quickly these days. Tenant screening is also very important. It is very important to run a credit check at a minimal and possibly a background check on the tenant. Trust me when I say having no tenant at all is way better than having a bad tenant. Bad tenants can be a huge, huge headache. So if you don't want to handle this process yourself, you can have a management company, and there are some decent ones around here in the Richmond area handle this for you. Now, they will typically take about 9 to 10% of your monthly rent for their services. So again, if you're renting for $3,600, that's taking a $360 chunk out of your monthly numbers. So if you can do this yourself, it's a place where you can save money. So step number 12, our last step here, is scale that business. Get it up and get it running. So once your first one is under your belt, I recommend just kind of wait about a year to 18 months. Get a good renter in place and really understand what you're doing, understand your numbers and how those numbers are working. Now, during this downtime, you can start saving up money for another down payment, which is important. And at this point, it's just rinse and repeat. The more of these you do, the better you get. The more efficient you get, the more you understand your numbers. And just remember, the first one is always the hardest. So if you had some problems on your first one, I promise you, they do get easier over time. Well, that's it for today's video on purchasing your first rental property. I really hope you enjoyed it. These are the types of things we talk to with our clients who are thinking about becoming real estate investors. Now, my wife and I started investing in rental properties about 15 years ago, and we are up to 8 properties. We try purchasing a new property roughly every 2 years or so, and we consider this a very, very vital part of our retirement strategy. So if you would like to talk about this more, give me a call, shoot me a text, send me an email. All of this is in the description below. And until next time, I hope to show you around town. Take care.